in the late 90s, I'm not going to specify the year so you will know my real age, I was honored to come to Zimbabwe, on a field research to complete my studies for an LLM in human rights. I was coming from an American university, and I remember before coming here, Your Excellency, I received, as part of the other students who were dispatched to other countries, a security orientation from the intelligence section of the State Department. And this gentleman was basically cautioning me, because I was the only one coming to Zimbabwe, and the list was very long. Don't do this, don't do that, don't eat outside, don't go outside, don't associate with the people, be careful, this and that. And to be honest with you, Excellency, the night before I traveled to Zimbabwe, I was wide awake thinking whether to proceed with the mission or not. But then something inside me told me that I must proceed with this mission. And I came to Zimbabwe. And from the airport, a different story emerged. All the list of things that I was told was proven to be wrong one after another. And I was supposed to be here only for 3 weeks. But after the third week, I extended my stay to another week, followed by another week, followed by another week. And I was almost to stay here forever, which is something that I'm still looking at, in fact. But to be short and brief, I went back with a different story to tell. And the different story was told in different platforms in the US, to the extent that at some point I was warned by the security agencies there not really to speak too much about this country in a good way. But I reminded them that I was not really making up all of these stories. These stories were true and they were real. So every time I come back to Zimbabwe, I come back with good memories and I leave with good stories to tell. And that is why I accepted the invitation to be among you today, although today, as you know, is the Eid celebrations for Muslims, which is a day that is similar to Easter in Christianity, where people spend it at home with the family. So I told my boys that I can't deny and reject this invitation from Zimbabwe because I have to be there. So I'm honored to be back to Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, the Deputy Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services, Republic of Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, the Deputy Minister of ICT, Minister of ICT, Republic of Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services. The Honorable Commissioner of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. The Chairperson, the Honorable Chairperson of the Media and Broadcasting Services, Parliament of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Honorable Chairperson of Zimbabwe Media Commission. Honorable parliamentarians and officials, members of the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Your Excellency, the UNESCO Regional Director for Southern Africa. Your Excellency, the Regional Director, the Regional Chairperson of MISA, distinguished representative of UN agencies, civil society, media, and academia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly observed. I bring you greetings from His Excellency, Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and also greetings from His Excellency Ambassador Bankole Adoye, the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. I wish to begin by thanking the people and the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe for hosting this important meeting in this beautiful city of Bulawayo. I wish to also begin by wishing all Africans, Muslim Africans, happy Eid, and also all Africans best wishes for an International Labour Day. I'm honored and privileged to have been invited to this very important conference organized by the Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA, as part of the commemoration of the World Press Freedom Day. Special thanks to the Chairperson and the Regional Director of MISA for inviting the African Governance Architecture Secretariat, known as AGA, to be part of these very important deliberations and to present this statement on mechanisms towards the protection of journalism in Southern Africa vis-a-vis continental trends on attacks on journalists on the continent. Allow me also, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to focus on the role of the African Union as the continental organization in ensuring the safety of journalists and defending media freedom in Africa. But before I proceed with my brief statement, allow me to pay special tribute to UNESCO for the role that UNESCO continues to play in advancing freedom of expression, access to information, and safety of journalists in Africa as well as globally. That the adoption of the landmark Windhoek Declaration of 1991. To date, the African Union as the continental organization has been working very closely with many stakeholders to ensure the safety and the protection of journalists in Africa. It would be fitting at this juncture to recognize the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, an organ of the African Union, and its special rapporteur on freedom of expression and access to information, noting with acknowledgement the sterling work of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights and its rapporteur in tracking the state of freedom of expression on the continent, as well as the safety and protection of journalists in Africa. This goes along with the work of other members of the African Union family, namely the African Committee on Experts on the Right and Welfare of the Child, as well as APRM, the African Peer Review Mechanisms, and other organs and institutions of the African Union that play great attention, play greater role and pay great attention to ensuring media freedom in Africa. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, media freedom as part of the general framework of freedom of expression is a cornerstone of human rights and freedoms enshrined in the African shared values and instruments. These freedoms cannot be enjoyed without ensuring the safety and protection of journalists who are playing an essential role in enabling participatory democracy globally and continentally on our beloved continent. Journalists, through the dissemination of information can facilitate citizen participation in public decision making and allow citizens to express their views freely. Journalism is thus not only important for information sharing, but also for participation, accountability, and democracy. Violations against journalists often go hand in hand with other violations, notably the right to freedom of association and assembly. Therefore, the question is, what is the role of the African Union in defending media freedom in Africa and ensuring the safety and protection of journalists? The right to information as an African shared value is enshrined in many African Union instruments, namely the principles of objectives of the African Union Constitutive Act of 2000 emphasize the need to promote and protect human and people's rights on the continent. This Constitutive Act, includes a number of provisions placing human rights on the agenda of the African Union. In addition to that, Article 3G of the Constitutive Act particularly mentioned that promotion and protection of human and people's rights in accordance with the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other relevant human rights instruments is an objective of the African Union. In fact, Article 9 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights emphasized the need that every individual shall have the right to receive information. And of course, this is another provision that is clearly advocate and lobby for freedom of information and access to information in Africa. All of this goes the same line with Aspiration 3 of Agenda 2063, the blueprint for the building of Africa, the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the African Union as the continental organization continue to promote and develop different mechanisms for the promotion and protection of human and people's rights, particularly the safety and protection of journalists on the continent. It's worth noting that the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which is the organ that is mandated with the promotion and protection of human and people's rights, is currently working very closely to create a special mechanism that will oversee and monitor the safety and protection of journalists in Africa. The purpose of this working group is to generate synergy and coordinate all efforts and initiatives that are dealing with the safety of journalists in Africa and to contribute to the African Commission on Human and People's Special Rapporteur's mandate related to the safety of journalists in Africa. Before I conclude, I would like to leave you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with 3 messages. Message number 1. The African Union Commission is instructed by the heads of state and government to proceed with the implementation of Agenda 2063, the blueprint for building the Africa we want within the next 50 years. Agenda 2063 cannot be implemented unless it is owned by the African citizens. And the only way for that ownership to happen is by involving journalists and media institutions in the popularization of Agenda 2063 and also the implementation of Agenda 2063. So therefore, I would like to seize this platform today and to seize this opportunity to call on you, all of you, journalists, members of the media, to be part of the implementation of Agenda 2063, by popularizing Agenda 2063 as the blueprint for building the Africa we want. Message number 2, it is very important looking around the table that we really need to get more women involved in this noble field. I hope next time we have a meeting like this, we will see a room that is 50-50. 50 males and 50 females. Women cannot be kept in the kitchen, not anymore. Why? Because our African continent cannot fly with one wing. We need the other wing, so the African continent will proceed in its campaign to build the Africa we want with 2 wings. So therefore, we need to see more women as part of this noble profession. We should not limit or allow this profession to only be limited to men. Women, they do have the ability, the skills, and the knowledge to become good journalists and to offer to advance this profession. So I hope that MISA and other stakeholders around the table will find a way to include more women in this process by empowering them, by educating them, by allowing them to gain the skills that is necessary for them to be part of this movement, this noble movement. We need to see more African women journalists. This is my second message. My third, we need to see more youth around the table. Africa, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, is a young continent. As we all know that 65 to 70% of the population of Africa are below the age of 35. So as the majority, they need to also be involved in this process. Because if they are not involved, if they are not allowed to be part of this movement, then it will be a loss for Africa. It will be a loss for the African dividend, and that is the youth. Our major resources in Africa, major assets, as you know, is not the uranium we have, is not the diamond we have, is not the gold we have, is not the oil we have. All of them will end at some point. But the major asset that we have in Africa is our youth. And therefore, we need to include our youth in this movement so we can ensure that our youth are becoming an agent of change instead of becoming an agent of destruction. Instead of being recruited by terrorism and by militias and by drug dealers, we need them to be part of this movement. So I hope next time we come to this meeting, we see more youth. I'm not saying you are not, but let me say to ensure continuity, we are all youth in this meeting. And if not in age, we are youth in heart. So let's hope that to ensure continuity, we will have more youth to be part of this process. And I think the involvement of youth is also important to prevent them from getting involved in false information, the spread of false information and bad information. So I hope that the stakeholders that are sitting around the table will be part of this matter, so we can attract more youth to be part of this process. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, it is the African Union Commission expectation that the outcomes of this conference will result in a robust and well-crafted pronouncement on the importance of media freedom and the safety and protection of journalists in accordance with the norms and standards of the African Shared Values Instrument, not only in the southern region of Africa, but in all parts of our beloved continent. A pronouncement that is in line with the efforts made by the African Union and its organs and institutions to promote the safety and protection of journalists within the context of the promotion and protection of human and people's rights in Africa. On a final note, let me express gratitude to the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe and MISA and UNESCO for organizing this very important conference. It is our hope that the outcome of this meeting will support the work of SADC as the regional entity, and the African Union as the continental entity, and all organs of the African Union in promoting and protecting human rights in Africa by ensuring the safety of journalists in a realization of Aspiration 3 of Agenda 2063.